Elections just happened in the United States, and I've been thinking about what presidents have shown an interest in UFOs during their presidency, who's had sightings of their own, and did any of them try and push for UFO transparency during their presidency? Hello, and welcome to this episode of Mysteries with the History, where you'll be taken on a wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. And with each episode together, we will peel away the layers to look for the truth. I'm going to bring in my co host, Jimmy Church of Faded Black Radio, but I have a question for those watching this live. Just one question. How many of you guys say the intro with me simultaneously? Let me know in the comments, let me know in the live chat, because whenever I see people say the same thing over, I say it with them, and I love it so much. I'm going to bring in my co host, Jimmy Church. Jimmy, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. How are you? How are you? Everything good? Everything good?
Yes. How are you?
Cristina freaking out before the show. Where are you? We've got stuff to do. What's going on? So, I've got a bunch of new gear here in the studio. So, I'm just working on stuff. So everything's good. How are you? It's Thursday. Good. It's my Friday. Right?
I think he said that almost every Thursday. But Jimmy, I have news for you. And I want to share this with you and all of the listeners. So I put a poll up 2 days ago on my YouTube community. And I asked, what's your favorite show on this channel? And I got 727 votes. And the highest rating show was this one right here, Mysteries with a History, with a 37%
of
saying yes. It's my favorite show.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. It'd be cool if they were here for me. But they're not. They're not. No. They're here for you. And this is your show. And originally, congratulations on that. I think that's fantastic. You know, you go back, we've been doing this show for a couple of years longer. I don't know exactly when we started, but Cristina goes, do you want to come in as a guest host, once? It was like that. And then and the next week, that was a lot of fun. You want to guest host again? The next thing you know,
I can't get rid of him.
I'm co-host. Yeah, I'm co-host. Co-host. And it's been so much fun doing this. And yeah, that's pretty cool. You do a lot of stuff all week long, and to have this one be everybody's favorite, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I dig that. Now, this week's question is already answered. Where'd you get the idea for this show? Well, that's kind of obvious. I do. Can I show you my shirt?
Is it a Harley shirt?
No. It's a dog. Some friends of mine gave me this shirt, and they raise sled dogs, huskies, sled dogs, and they gifted me this shirt, and it's really, really cool. And Doug and Sherry, and they're going to be going with me next week to Peru. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's just a really cool shirt, and I don't know if that's one of their dogs in front of the flying saucer, but it's just a great shirt. So. And now with all of this new gear, thank you, Wes. That's really cool. Oh, yeah. I've got my cup on display in the living room.
Oh, that's right. Jimmy does have.
I do. Next up, I'll get a puck. Christina, send me a puck. I'll put Puck in his mug. Yeah, in the living room. This is an important show today, and although I don't, and neither do you. We don't mix politics and other stuff into our shows and show topics for a great reason, that it tends to divide people. You talk about religion, you cut your audience in half. Everybody's fighting. You could talk about cat videos. The audience is divided, right? You can talk about, and so and politics, comes into the mix. But the conspiracy of politics and UFOs and presidents needs to be discussed.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
And we've got UFO hearings coming up this month. It now appears that, yes, we've got November 13th, and I'm going to be on an airplane that day. Dang it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm going to be on a flight to Peru. But anyway, so November 13th, maybe I'll be able to catch it at the airport or something. And but I'll have Wi-Fi on the airplane. Maybe I can stream the hearing. But then apparently the Senate is doing a UFO hearing also this month. The Senate Intelligence Committee. So that's a pretty big deal, and that's when UFOs and politics mix, and that's when I choose to discuss this stuff on the show because I think it's just very important for everybody. So now, but presidents and UFOs. Grant Cameron, presidential UFOs, that was his website for many years. He's written books on it. He's gotten most of the UFO archives from each of the presidential libraries, and he's got a lot of documentation on this. And so we're gonna do a pretty good deep dive into this subject today. And I think that you're going in this same direction. Maybe we should go in a linear timeline, chronological order. You kind of want to do it that way?
That's a good idea.
Okay, so the big year. I'm gonna hand this over to you because I've got my stuff too as well. But the big year is kind of 1947
That's right.
for a
Because
couple of
of
Roswell.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Roswell. Now, before I hand it off to you, in the timeline, the big one for us in the community, but for the rest of the world, was July 8th, 1947, because that was the date of the publication of the Roswell Daily Record, featuring that grand headline, right? And announcing that the Roswell Army Airfield had captured a flying saucer from
No.
the ranch near Roswell. So that's the headline, but that's kind of the beginning of a lot of things: cover-ups, the art of the cover-up, misleading, misinformation, disinformation, tampering of witnesses, probably the introduction of the Men in Black. But 1947 was a key year for a lot of different reasons. Remember that 1947, it was Roswell Army Airfield. Okay. So in 1947, I'm going to hand this off to you. So many things happened. And one of them that was huge was the creation of the Air Force. So all of the Army airfields around the world and across the United States now became Air Force bases. And that was in 1947, after the Roswell crash. So is that significant to this storyline? Well, Cristina, what have you got?
It definitely is. Now, this was all taking place during the presidency of Harry Truman, who was in office between 1945 and 1953, running for 2 terms. Now, during this time, there were a lot of crazy things happening in the world of UFOs, but 47 was one of the biggest hits. And during this time frame, Truman was feeling very, very overwhelmed, not just with things were happening with UFOs, but also the complex relationship with the Soviet Union as well, and then fights against Germany and Japan. And he felt like he needed more people on his team. So what did he create? He created the National Security Act, being the NSA, and the Central Intelligence Agency, being the CIA. Now, these two government offices, programs, whatever, are very, very significant because those two have shown some of the most intense interest in UFOs, more so than maybe the FBI, and a few others. The NSA and the CIA consistently, across the decades, whenever there's a UFO sighting or something strange happening,
That's right.
those are the groups that come in first, right next to the Men in Black, of course. And then in the late 40s into the 1950s, there was just this massive wave of reported UFO incidents that captured the public's attention during Truman's presidency. And then this even includes the very, very, very famous 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO sighting, which caused nationwide sensation. And I think it's so tough for a president, in this case for Truman, being one of the first presidents to have to deal with this. He was treading in unknown waters. There were no real protocols beforehand. How would you address this? And in this case for Truman, he, in many respects, turned a blind eye, but he also created the NSA and the CIA to probably, and this is an assumption, to probably manage these situations.
Yes, and of course we have the creation of the Air Force
Right.
and the Roswell Daily Record. That's July 8th, 1947. All right, now we've got 2 weeks later after this, July 26th, 1947. Truman signed the National Security Act into law. Cristina, this established not only the Department of the Air Force as a separate branch of the military. But right after that, he turns around and signs, and it took a minute to get all of the logistics in order, but he signed the National Security Act in September 1947, which created the CIA, which was previously the OSS here in the United States. And then also in 1947, Truman formed MJ-12, and we can't ignore this. It was signed in 1947 by executive order by Harry Truman to facilitate, according to the documents, much has been debated about these over the years, but for the recovery and investigation of alien spacecraft. Now, also tying into 1947, we've got a lot to cover today. But 1947 was a crazy year, Cristina. On October 14th, 1947, down the street from my house in 1947, Chuck Yeager flew the X-1 to become the first human to exceed the speed of sound. And that happened at Muroc Army Airfield. Remember, and this is going to come up later, that was later named, all of this going on at the same time, named Edwards Air Force Base. All right. Remember, the creation of the Air Force was in 1947. All these Army airfields around the country became Air Force bases. And that's what happened in 1947 with Muroc Army Airfield. It became Edwards Air Force Base, central to so much alien stuff, right? And it's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. It's right. How many pictures can I post of me over at Edwards? And if you're into this subject like I am, and you've got this ginormous top secret installation right down the street, what are you going to do? I drive over there all the time. My head on a swivel. What am I going to see? What am I going to see? And that was 1947. 47 was a big year. You know what else happened in 1947?
Tell
You had
me.
the crash. You had the crash of the spacecraft in Roswell, and all of the stories behind that, the recovery of it, taken to Wright-Patterson, taken apart, dismantled, studied. Right? You know what happened in 1947? The invention of the transistor. That's a big, big deal. Now, that happened at Bell Laboratories. The story is in 1947 that the debris from the craft was given to private companies to figure out what was going on. So you look at I'm assuming electrical systems, printed circuit boards, advanced, semiconductors and chips and and you're looking at that, knowing that the entire existence of the electronics world before that was tubes, right? Tubes, this analog way of doing things. And tubes were the transistors. To miniaturize a hot tube, it's a tube, it's a light bulb, right? It's a tube. To miniaturize that down into an electronic transistor, suddenly on a circuit board, revolutionized everything as we know it. We wouldn't be doing today if that didn't happen in 1947. Was that tied to Roswell? I would say a lot of stuff came off of that Roswell craft that people looked at and wondered what it was and how it worked. And then we turned around and incorporated that into commercial technology. And that includes things like, and I'll make this really brief, things like optical fiber, right? Transmitting electrical signals with light. That's a very advanced thing for back then. But these technologies suddenly blossomed across the United States, all after that key month of July 1947. Truman found himself right in the middle of this. So suddenly you had to lock down the secrecy, you had to lock down the communication. You didn't want your enemies to share this. You didn't want other companies around the world to jump in front of United States engineering and production and technology. No, you wanted to maintain control of all of that. So we could have really cool television sets. I'm just saying, and it's things like that, Cristina, that came after July 1947.
Coincidence? I think not. Wes Decker, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. And Johnny, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. He says, Cristina and Jimmy had a sighting on September 18th. I can't make this up while watching your show late at night. Where can I send you? Where and when and how? My email is in the description box below. It's Cristina@strangeparadigms.com. And Jimmy is Jimmy@jimmychurch.com. I mean, it's our name.
Jimmy Church Radio.
Oh.
.com. JimmyChurchRadio.com.
You know what? I email him every day too. How could I not know that one? Yeah. But now you know them, and you can send us that sighting. That does sound very interesting. Now we have to move on over to our next president, being Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, for those that follow this channel religiously, thank you. I recently did a show on Dwight D. Eisenhower and his alleged encounters with UFOs and the Eisenhower Treaty. You can find that right here on this channel. I highly recommend it. But for those that haven't seen it, we're going to be discussing it right here, right now, because we have to when mentioning presidents and UFOs. So his terms were between 1953 and 1961. And what's interesting about him in particular is that before he even became president, he had a very strong military background. And he had this unusual briefing back in November of 1952, shortly after winning the election, but before his inauguration. And the briefing notably came just 4 months after the remarkable Washington, D.C. UFO incident, where, as you know, UFOs were seen over the White House on 2 separate occasions in July of 1952. Now, during this period, there was a classified document, as Jimmy had mentioned just a few moments ago, being the MJ-12 Special Operations Manual, which was allegedly created bearing the title Extraterrestrial Entities and Technologies, Recovery and Disposal, and marked top secret for magic eyes only. And what's interesting about this is that he was given a briefing on MJ-12, what they were doing, and things like this. This has been unheard of beforehand and even after, for presidents to receive a briefing before their inauguration on instances such as these. But I cannot emphasize enough that we really have to consider his military background as well, because it would only make sense that he would be briefed on these things if he is commanding what the commander in chief, as all presidents are during their time of presidency. But then we have to also talk about how in 1955, how he had an encounter with extraterrestrials, allegedly. And then just a few years after that, in 1957, when he went over to the Halcombe Air Force Base as well, and he allegedly had signed a treaty with the hook-nosed Greys, where he allowed them to abduct humans and do cattle mutilations in exchange for advanced technology to prosper the military and maybe even the human race as well.
Did you say hook nose, like the Wicked Witch of the
Of the
of the
West?
of the West? Was she of the West or the East? Was the Good Witch from the East? Who was from the North?
Yeah, the Wicked Witch of the West, because it's like www.com.
Oh, is it really? Oh, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
It makes it easy to remember.
Okay. All right. Yeah. The drawings. That was filmed. I have spoken directly to two people that saw the film. One that was in possession of the film. The film has never made it public. I have fought for that. I haven't seen it. Okay, I'm just going to let everybody know. James Fox has fought for this to go public. He knows the same people that I do and has spoken to the same people that I have. And certainly those people, the producer of the project and so forth, and one of the investigators, did see the film 100%. Okay, what are you laughing at? What are you laughing? This is serious stuff. Okay.
Mr. Webb says, I've been babysitting a lasagna in the oven, LOL, and I know how hard it is to make lasagna, and you really do got to babysit it. Same with pumpkin. I just eyeball it. So it made me laugh.
I am so tired of pumpkin. Pumpkin has invaded all of my recipes, all of my favorite things. I don't need pumpkin in anything but pumpkin pie. I don't need pumpkin spice latte, pumpkin espresso, pumpkin. It's like it's pumpkin milk. I don't need that stuff. Pumpkin cereal? Are you kidding me? No. Pumpkin pie, Cool Whip, I'm okay. Back to Dwight D. Eisenhower. All right. Here's the thing with all of this. This treaty has been talked about for a very, very long time. So let's get into specifics. President Dwight D. Eisenhower didn't have one, didn't have two, didn't have three. He had 4 secret meetings with aliens. 3
allegedly.
At Halcombe Air Force Base. Right? You can say allegedly. You can say it if you want. Somebody take me to court. I'm saying they happened. Prove it to me that they didn't. That's all I got to say. I'm serious. So not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 secret meetings with aliens. 3 at Halcombe Air Force Base in New Mexico, 1954. Those kicked off. And 1 at Edwards Air Force Base. Right here in Palmdale, California. And that was in February of 1954. We know that because of a lot of things. Eisenhower goes to Palm Springs. He goes to his, what they call the Western White House, and he disappeared for a day. And this freaked out the news wires, AP. It was reported, and this went out as news, that he had a heart attack and possibly died. This was a big deal. He disappears for a day, Cristina. He's gone. Well, actually, Eisenhower went to Edwards Air Force Base. Now, for everybody to understand, here's Palm Springs, here's my house, here's Edwards. You only got to go over the hill, and if you're he's in a presidential motorcade. Maybe not in a motorcade. Maybe he was by himself. but he's still the president, and he can exceed the speed limit and avoid a ticket. You could probably make it to Edwards from Palm Springs in about an hour. Okay. It's very easy to get to. It's all out in the desert. And so he goes to Edwards Air Force Base so he can meet with ET, because ET arrived there while he was in Palm Springs on their own craft. So they land and they park it. This was filmed. There were eyewitnesses of the ET coming and landing. Reports were written, right, by the Air Force. All right. So he arrives at Edwards, and they communicated with Eisenhower telepathically. There's a film everybody can watch. It's excellent, by the way. It's called The 11th Green. Write that down, look it up, go and watch it. It's a really, really fun film to see all of this dramatized. It's an amazing film. Anyway, so they communicate with them telepathically and offered advanced technology and spiritual enlightenment. All of this is in that film, by the way, The 11th Green, in exchange for the Earth eliminating all nuclear weapons. Now, it is said that Eisenhower said no. All right? He said no. He didn't agree with the treaty, didn't agree with the ideas, and the meeting ended. After this, Eisenhower met and signed the ET treaty at Halcombe Air Force Base in New Mexico after 3 meetings that happened after 1954. This is what do you think? Is this mythology? Is this folklore? Is this a folk tale? Is this the game of telephone? And it just gets it gets blown up into this? Or do you think that there is actually some substance to the treaty story that Eisenhower made with the extraterrestrials?
I don't know.
Do you lean one way or the other?
No, but I want to have my own experience and interrogate them.
We all do.
That's
one of my first questions.
Eisenhower.
Yeah. What Eisenhower? Eisenhower?
Maybe they have a lisp. Maybe they have an accent when they speak. And they call him Eisenhower instead of.
Now, that was an engine they used in Indianapolis for motor racing, the Eisenhower 500. So, for those of you in auto racing, you get that joke. You understand. You're laughing right now. Here's the thing with all of that. The Palm Springs incident was real. So when you look at these ideas and these, so-called conspiracy theories and these stories like this, and then you kind of pick it apart and you look at it and you go, okay, what can we prove here? Well, we know, one, Eisenhower was in Palm Springs. We know this. We know that, 2, he disappeared. We know that, 3, there was a cover story that he had a toothache and visited a dentist. That was the official statement from the White House. No dentist has come forward and said, I did a root canal on Ike. That's right. That's never surfaced. 4, we know that AP did a press release announcing Eisenhower is dead. He had a heart attack in Palm Springs, and that's why he is missing. These are the facts of the case, right? So when you look at a conspiracy, it only takes a little bit for me, right, to jump into the deep end of the pool. I don't jump into the deep end of the pool for no reason. But when you have stuff like this, then you kind of have to back up and go, why do you disappear yourself for a day? Do you do that over a toothache? If you got a toothache, you announce to the press, we're out here at the Western White House. We need a good dentist in the area because I got a toothache and I need to have this fixed. What's the big deal in that? You don't just disappear from the press and everything else, so much so that the AP does a release out into the public domain that the US president just died of a heart attack. You don't do that, right? So is that the cover story? Did he go to Edwards? There were the reports of the craft being filmed as it approached and landed at Edwards on that weekend. He drives out to Edwards and has this disagreement with them, this exchange. So of technology for us disarming ourselves, and he said no. Later, it appears that there was another agreement that was made at Halcombe, and that treaty was, which is part of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We can't forget about that, and the exchange program that was going on. We'll give you some humans, you give us some ETs, and we'll do this exchange and be friendly with each other. Allegedly, that's what the treaty was about that was signed and agreed to at Halcombe Air Force Base in New Mexico.
And also during this time frame between the late 50s into the 70s were some of the highest accounts of alien abductions and cattle mutilations as well. Just putting that information out there. If you're enjoying the show, hit that like button right down below and subscribe if you haven't already, because tomorrow I'll be doing a live stream, and guess what? I'm going to be giving out 2 free access to the members only Patreon get together November 9th at 11 a.m. where you can share your own experiences, be with like-minded people, win merch, and play UFO trivia games.
I want merch. Oh, I can't. Can I do UFO trivia? I will kick everybody's booty.
You're actually not allowed to play the trivia game, but you can join.
Kick booty. I want to participate in all of this.
My questions are pretty hard, but what I'm saying is we've done this live stream together once before with all of my Patreon supporters, but tomorrow, like I said, I'll be giving out 2 free access links for you.
What's the merch? Hold on. We got to get back to, we got to do Jimmy Carter. What's the merch? The merch,
it's brand new. No one's seen it yet.
What?
I know. It's pretty sick.
Don't I
I love it.
Everybody thinks I've got a VIP backstage pass and I get whatever. I don't. No, I'm way down on Christina's list. You got to be a member of Patreon and do all of that stuff, man. And now I don't get to do the trivia contest. Can't we do the trivia?
Because you'd probably win.
Well, yeah, twice. But then I could give it to number 2. I could give do I get like a key to the city or something? And I could give, and I could give that to number 2. Man, let me have some fun once in a while. Or wouldn't it be funny to watch somebody destroy me in UFO trivia? That'd be fun. It'd be like win Ben Stein's money.
One. Well, for those that were there for the last together, I think it was in April, they can testify. The questions were hard. They were not easy peasy lemon squeezy questions.
Okay, all right. I'll tell you what.
Some I was like, I don't know the answer.
Let's up the ante. Let's make it like win Ben Stein's money, but we'll do win Jimmy Church's, and I'll give away something. I give away some T-shirts, or maybe give away a guitar or something. Win Jimmy Church's guitar.
And jump in. I thought my merch was cool.
I got a couple. Well, I'll donate to the cause.
You just gotta one up me every time, Jimmy.
No. And we both can sign the guitar or something. I say guitar because I'm just looking around. But yeah, we could do something. Let's kick it up. Okay. Let's get to before we run out of time. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there on Saturday. It's Saturday or is it tomorrow?
Is it tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday.
Okay.
So Friday, I'm giving out 2 free access to anyone watching it live. Saturday is when it's going to be taking place, and it's going to be so much fun. Wes Decker, thank you again for the $10 super chat. It says, here's my contribution to the Let Jimmy Play Fund.
See, people want to just spank me. It's like stump the panel. Okay, all right, let's do it. Let's bring it on. You want to do Kennedy next, or not Jimmy Carter?
Okay. No, Kennedy's next on the list, right?
No, he wasn't on my list. What list are you reading from?
my list. Anyways, he was president from 61 to 63. And while he wasn't in office for a long period of time, let me just state this. There are rumors that he had a real interest in UFOs. He had his hands in UFO information and data, and he wanted to share it with the public, but then tragedy struck. According to the book Presidents and UFOs, A Secret History from FDR to Obama by Larry Halcombe, it says here, Kennedy, as a member of the Harvard Board of Overseers, had an established relationship with Dr. Donald H. Menzel. Jimmy, give us the info. Who is Menzel? Why is this important?
Okay, Menzel. We could do 2 weeks worth of shows on
No.
on
I
Menzel.
need 2 sentences.
I'm going to give you 2 sentences. Inside debunker disinformation agent that played both sides of the coin. Publicly, he would tear people apart. Privately, he was part of MJ-12. And that was really strange to see him on that list because of not only of what he did publicly. He's a professor, university, astronomer, all of these things, but he was a CIA consultant and informant, and specifically on the UFO subject. So yeah, Menzel, oof, man, one of the most controversial figures in ufology for sure. A very smart guy, very learned person, no question about it. All of the credentials backing him up, but he played both sides, Cristina.
He did, and yes, it's very but in secret, he did hold a top secret ultra security clearance in the government,
Yep.
and he is known to have been deeply involved in the CIA and the NSA, who was created by which president?
I don't know.
Truman.
Oh, Truman. Oh yeah, of course. National Security Act. But
Let me finish.
see,
Let me finish.
are we doing trivia now, or are we going to wait
No.
until Saturday?
Well, I'm always in the mood for trivia, but that I was just anyways. So his name appears on leaked documents as a member of MJ-12, as Jimmy had mentioned, and Menzel, as we end up seeing later, played the role in the Kennedy administration, most certainly as an advisor on the UFO issue. And official documents between Kennedy and the CIA clearly indicate his desire for joint space exploration with the Soviet Union and the sharing of data research as well. Now, he also requested UFO data from the CIA, and Kennedy had a great concern about UFOs could be mistaken by the US or the Soviet Union as a nuclear attack. And this is something that he supposedly saw during his time of presidency, but based off of this information, he had a very serious interest in UFOs, but from the viewpoint of it being a national security issue. Like, what if it's not actually extraterrestrials, but it's a nuclear attack? How should we address the issue? But before he was able to give any information to the public, if he was planning on doing so, he was taken out in Dallas, Texas. Soon after.
Yeah, well, you have that Menzel not only through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go 6 presidential administrations he was involved with when it came to the UFO subject, and not only through Kennedy, but then Johnson, and then Nixon. And he died in 1976. And when Project Blue Book, the Condom Report, the hearings, the stuff that was going on with Gerald Ford, Menzel, his name was Don, by the way, Don DH, found himself influencing every decision when it came to UFO secrecy. And so when Project Blue Book was canceled and came apart, in 1968, 1969, Menzel was at the center of all of that. So yeah, it was a crazy time, and I think that he had a lot of influence on Kennedy. Kennedy by the reports that we have, and this goes to Marilyn Monroe, that she knew he had told her, "Hey, man, this UFO stuff, I want to go public with it." She dies, right? There were plenty of people that were pissed off. I shouldn't have said. Were pretty angry with President Kennedy. There were a lot of there was a lot of motivation with different groups for sure. The UFO secrecy side of things, I think it was just as big and just as influential as anything else. And Kennedy had a real interest in the subject, and I think that he really wanted to support the American public and U.S. citizens on their right to know. And certainly, UFOs was one of the things that he wanted everything to be open. He was dealing with so many different things at that time: the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War and Khrushchev and everything else. And UFOs were right caught up in the middle of that. And Donald Menzel was right in the middle of all of that too.
And we know, it's public knowledge, that Donald Trump has had an interest in this. He wants to release more information about the JFK files. And it would be interesting if it mentions anything about Kennedy's interest in UFOs or his push for UFO disclosure or transparency as well. Moving on over to our next president, being Richard Nixon, who was the vice president for Eisenhower, for those that didn't know. And he was president between 1969 and 1974. He was reelected, but then left just right after his reelection as he resigned due to the Watergate scandal. But he had a connection to the UFO phenomenon, primarily emerges through his relationship, and this is actually really interesting, with his relationship with Jackie Gleason, who was both his golfing buddy and an avid UFO enthusiast. Let me just state this. You have best friends for a reason. You have similar interests. You guys get along because of your similar views. I mean, there's a difference between a friend and a best friend. Just keep that in mind. So Jackie's interest in extraterrestrial life was well documented. In his 1960s home in New York was designed in a shape of a flying saucer, which he dubbed the mothership, with surrounding scout ship outbuildings as well. And he amassed an impressive collection of 1,700 books on UFOs and the paranormal, which he later donated to the University of Miami Library. But the most controversial aspect of the Nixon-Gleason connection comes from Beverly Gleason, which was Jackie's former wife, who shared a remarkable story with a certain magazine. And according to his ex-wife, following a golf game where Nixon and Gleason were discussing UFOs, the president made a late night visit to Gleason's home and took him to Homestead Air Force Base. There, she claimed that Gleason was shown a hangar containing a crashed UFO and a preserved extraterrestrial body as well. And while variations of the story does exist, some versions place the incident at the MacDill Air Force Base or suggest military officers rather than Nixon, who escorted Gleason. And several key elements remain consistent, and that is Gleason returned home notably disturbed by what he had seen. And while he was upset with his wife for sharing the story publicly, he never denied her account of the events. Take it or leave it, but that's a pretty interesting detail.
I think it went down just like you said, and we'll leave that right there. I'm looking at the clock. Cristina, we've got so much to cover. How are we going to get all of this in? Okay, let's go to Jimmy Carter really quick. This was actually a very big deal. And there you go. There you go. President Nixon with Jimmy Church. I looked pretty good for 8 years old, didn't I? I looked pretty good. Jimmy Carter's UFO sighting. Now, he was president from 1977 to 1981, and he reported seeing a UFO while in Leary, Georgia, back in 1969. While serving as governor of Georgia, he was asked on September 14th, 1973. This is a very famous statement by the International UFO Bureau in Oklahoma City to file a report of the sighting. So he did, and he filed a statement. And on September 18th, he mailed it. And then on September 20th, it was revealed. In 1973, Carter said, and I am quoting, now I've read the report, but this is what he said publicly to a reporter. He said, quote, "There were about 20 of us standing outside of a little restaurant, I believe, a high school lunchroom, and a kind of green light appeared in the western sky. This was right after sundown. It got brighter and brighter, and then it eventually disappeared. It didn't have any solid substance to it. It was just a very peculiar looking light. None of us could understand what it was." That is a classic sighting, isn't it? That could have been made today. That is, I if you know what I mean, right? We see these kinds of phenomena all the time, and it doesn't fit into what we understand that should be in the sky. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit any of that. It's an amazing part of history. Carter stood by it. So much so that he ended up filing a report about it. And there were a lot of witnesses to this. Now, listen, let me look. Cristina, I have got so much stuff here. I've got so much stuff. Can we just keep rolling?
Well, let me mention this about Carter before we move forward. And that is, he was given let me back up. According to Richard Dolan, he was given a briefing on UFOs, and Richard Dolan spoke to a witness that was in the same room as Carter after his briefing, and he had his hands in his face with a big sigh. Now, there are rumors that he was crying after the briefing, but according to Richard Dolan, Carter would actually just had like this ginormous sigh of maybe stress or anxiety or sadness. We don't actually know, but from Carter onward, we have Carter, Clinton, Obama, Trump, and I think a few others have.
There's a guy called Ronald Reagan was in there too.
Oh, and Ronald, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and Ronald, well, I don't know if Ronald Reagan had mentioned it publicly, but the other ones had mentioned publicly that they did receive, certain small specific briefings on UFOs. And
well, they all said the same thing. Cristina, let me jump in. They all said the same thing. When I get into the White House, I'm going to get to the secret stuff and I'm going to give it to the public.
And Carter was one of the first people to say that as well.
And then nobody delivered. Not one.
No.
Not one delivered. Not one delivered. Ronald Reagan talked about aliens and ET probably more than anybody. Yeah, we can look at, Barack Obama and Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel or one of the Jimmy shows, or certainly Bill Clinton did his stuff too as well on different talk shows and talked about this stuff. But if you go back to Ronald Reagan and the famous speech that he did at the United Nations. Well, he did that same. People think that was the only time he mentioned it. He did that on 8 different occasions, 8 different speeches. Each one of those speeches, his speechwriter gave him the speech, and then he wrote in the area next to the speech, next to the text, he wrote his alien comments. Okay, don't forget. So he went beyond his speechwriter, right, in the margin. He wrote in the margin and would go out and do his speech and then get to his alien thing and mention it. He did it 8 separate times. Now, let's back up. This is a crazy situation. 1964, okay? Nancy and Ronald are driving down Pacific Coast Highway past Malibu in his blue Mustang convertible. They've got the top down. They're on their way to a party. I'll get to that in a second. Hollywood party. They're driving to Bel Air, and the sun is setting to the west. And as they're driving down Pacific Coast Highway, Nancy's like, "What's that?" Ron, I call him Ron, we're close. Ron looks, he's driving. The top is down. It's the two of them. They don't have a security detail. He's governor of California, right? He's driving down, and he looks, and they see a craft come out of the water, and it's lit up by the sun because the sunset is happening at the same time. They both look at this craft. They watch it go back into the water, come out of the water, and then take off and fly to the stars. They drive to the party. You know whose house it was?
No.
Lucille Ball. They're going to a birthday party that Lucille Ball is throwing for another actor. All right. Now, so they arrive at the party. The press is there. It's a part. Lucille Ball is probably the most famous person in the world at that point, right? I Love Lucy, Desi Lou, and everything else.
Star Trek too.
What?
She also funded Star Trek. She was the one that said, "No, don't stop after season 1. Continue with Star Trek." That was her.
Look at you. Is this okay? So that's obviously not a trivia question for Saturday. So, but if it is, I now know the answer. That's a good trivia question. I did not know that. So they go. Ron and Nancy arrive at the party, and what did they do? They tell everybody about the UFO they just saw on Pacific Coast Highway. That turns around. The press is there. They're listening to the story. It's a birthday party. It was like for Charlton Heston or something. And it's a birthday party that is now the Ronald and Nancy Reagan UFO party. And that's just part of the Ronald Reagan story. So when we talk about these 8 speeches that he gave discussing ET, there was reasons for it. His the famous sighting that everybody talks about. That's 1974. Again, right here in my backyard. This happened. He was flying in a private plane going to Bakersfield, which is the next city north and west of me. And so Reagan and the crew of his plane witnessed that UFO while flying to Bakersfield. The group noticed a strange light behind the plane, which appeared to be several hundred yards away, very close. And it was a very bright light. And then the light accelerated, elongated, and then took off at a 45-degree angle and disappeared. The plane's pilot, we know his name, was Bill Painter. Ronald also had 2 security guards with him. They were all on board. They all saw it. Now, he initially shared the experience with a reporter, but later decided not to discuss anything publicly. Now, Reagan said, and I quote, "We followed at 12:31 p.m. on November 7th. He said that we followed it for several minutes. It was a bright white light. We followed it to Bakersfield, and all of a sudden, to our utter amazement," this is a quote, "it went straight up into the heavens." Now, Cristina, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? What do you do? It's hard enough for me to share something like that on my show, or if you had that experience, do you go public with it? We're talking about Ronald Reagan, not only future president of the United States, governor of California, which like for 2 generations, right? Hollywood star. This is a very, very public person. And to just go public with something like this, the light was behind our plane a couple of hundred yards. It caught up to us. It elongated and then passed us and took off at a 45-degree angle and disappeared into space. That's a Class A Holy Grail UFO sighting.
It is, and it's very exciting that he was willing to speak, at least amongst his friends, about the sighting, but then when reporters came and asked him for more information, he clammed up. He did not wanna talk about it, and then especially when he won presidency, people didn't let it go. Journalists, reporters still wanted to ask him about that sighting that he had just a decade or so prior, and he didn't really address it after that. 'Cause
It,
he knew where his credibility stood.
well, but see, here's the other part with that. We know the name of the pilot on the plane. We know who his security personnel are and were, and all of this can get investigated, right? We can go and pin and get their statements and testimony on this, and he chose not to do that. If I would have seen something like that, well, I would go public with it for sure. That I don't even think that's the point. How did it change him? Right? How does it effectively change your opinion or your ideas on a subject like that? And then you turn around and you see this from the window of your plane. It's absolutely incredible. Okay, we're out of time. Can I just jump through a couple of things really fast? Can I
Do you
just
wanna go
bust a
to
move?
George do you wanna go to George Bush? George W. Bush?
Let's
We can skip it.
okay, no, we can't. Okay, let's do Bill Clinton. Because I have some interesting quotes with Bill
Okay.
and his attempt to get inside of Area 51. He said, now these are all quotes from Bill Clinton. He said, while he was president, he and Chief of Staff John Podesta, there you go, dun dun dun, right? John Podesta, quote, made every attempt to find out everything about Roswell. He names Roswell. We sent people to Area 51 to make sure there were no aliens. In other words, Clinton believed that there were aliens there. So he sent secret agents, he sent people there. And I'll take this a step further to search for them aliens, right? Clinton also said that he sent his national security advisor at that time, Sandy Berger. And if you remember the Clinton administration, Sandy Berger was a very key person in his administration, and he was his national security advisor. He sent Sandy Berger to Area 51. Now, I've got another quote here from Clinton. Quote, I said to Sandy, we got to find out how we're going to deal with this, talking about the aliens, because that's where we do a lot of our invisibility research in terms of technology, like how we fly airplanes that aren't picked up by radar and all that. So that's why they're so secretive. That was Bill's take on this whole thing. Now, you would assume that a president is read in. You would assume these things. At that time, Area 51 didn't exist. It wasn't official. Right? You need to look at it in those terms. It was Independence Day mentions it. The Air Force and the CIA get involved and going, you can't mention Area 51 in a movie, right? You can't do this. And the rumors around it back then, the B-2 stealth bomber, the F-117 stealth technology, and all of this stuff that was going on around the world that we were seeing for the very first time, and the words of like stealth addressing technology that made our aircraft invisible. This was impossible stuff, right? And so you need to keep the lid on that. Where was the research being done? It was being done at Area 51. Isn't that the place where we have aliens? Don't know. Well, let's find out. And Clinton made it his mission to do so. And it was go ahead, but it was the same thing with Barack Obama.
It was. And also, just to state this, because we're seeing Hillary Clinton on screen right here, when she was running for president against Trump in 2015, 2016, she was also stating, if I become president, I will release UFO information. Same with Bernie Sanders during that same election period. If I become president, I will release UFO information as well. So during this time frame from Clinton onward, actually from Carter onward, over and over and over again, we heard people that were going to be elected as president stating, if you elect me, I will disclose UFO information. And as we had mentioned earlier, none of the presidents have fallen through as of yet. Moving on to
Well,
Barack Obama.
Hillary played the UFO card in that election. She
She
did.
did.
She was in Connecticut. She was with a reporter out there. And as the story goes, the quotes are direct. They were in like a lunchroom, a break room, and standing by a refrigerator, maybe getting something out of a refrigerator. And maybe it was at the newspaper office. And Hillary says, look, UFOs, UAPs. Remember, it was her that when she said, they don't call them UFOs anymore. That's so passe. That's so last year. Now they're called UAPs. But she said, I am going to reveal everything about the subject if I'm elected president. And she said that to a reporter. That got released out into the public. I remember jumping on that line. I couldn't believe it. And I thought to myself, and I still think it now, the UFO card, it's a bipartisan card.
That's right.
I think it'd be very smart for anybody, any elected official at any level, city council, mayor, right? District attorney, governor, senator, right? Any of that, House of Representatives, some district in any state, play the UFO card. Play the UFO card. You're trying to figure out how to attack. Do that. That you will have everybody's interest immediately. And I have the feeling this next round, we've got 4 years until another presidential election. We've got 2 years for more House elections to come into play. Do it. The UFO card, that is a big chunk of this country. That it's not red or blue. It's not young or old. It's not male or female. It's not any of those things. It's all encompassing. Play that card. In 2021, we'll wrap with this. I know we're out of time. President Barack Obama said, and I quote, when I came into office, should I do my impression? No, I'm not going to do it. When I came into office, I was like, all right, is there a lab somewhere where we're keeping alien specimens and a spaceship? I thought that to myself. And, they did a little bit of research, and the answer was no. But what is true, this is Barack Obama, I'm still quoting, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And I like that. That's the way to look at it. Go and find out what is going on. So that's all I have. Cristina, thank you so much. What a great show. Should we do a part 2? Are we really going to do something on Saturday?
For real, for real.
Okay, I'll talk to you about that later. I've got a lot to do today. We'll line up something tomorrow, and I'll jump in on this. Man, what have I done? What have I done? Cristina, enjoy the rest of your day. Everybody, thank you so much. Tonight on the show, I've got a psychic detective on the show tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got a psychic detective. Yeah, Patricia Mana. And how does she get her work done? How do different law enforcement agencies reach out to her, and why and when? At what point of an investigation are you at when you go, man, we gotta call Patricia. I want to know. And what techniques and how do you solve a case like that? We're going to do all of that and much more tonight on Fade to Black. I'll see everybody there. Cristina, enjoy your afternoon. Great show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, before you head out, hit that like button. But also, I got to bring this up. I got to bring up Donald Trump as well, because he has given a handful of different interviews talking about UFOs, what he knows. And sadly, the information is very limited. But I did a show yesterday where it's asking, will Donald Trump be the disclosure president? Will he release information about UFOs? Because right now, at this point in time, people want to know these questions. People want to know the answers to these questions. They want to know what's going on. And will Donald Trump be pressured enough to release more information about UFOs? In that video, I will link it in the description box below. It goes into detail on what was taking place during his presidency from 2016 over to the end of 2020 to 2021 as well, and a handful of interviews where he is asked about UFOs. And consistently, he states, I was briefed on the information. I have spoken to pilots. They have shared their experiences with me. And while I'm not a big believer, which is a bit disappointing, he does think that there is something to it. Now, is he going to push for more UFO data, more UFO information? All we can do is wait and see. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button right down below. You do not want to miss tomorrow's show, as I will be giving 2 free access tickets, links to our Saturday live get together, where you can be with a close knit of like-minded people playing UFO trivia games and winning free merch. You really don't want to miss it. That is it for today. I will see you tomorrow. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.